The Chi, Season 4. This is a Showtime series created by one of my personal goats, Lena Waithe, and here is the official synopsis for the series. From Emmy winner Lena Waithe, The Chi is a timely coming-of-age drama series centered on a group of residents who become linked by coincidence, but bonded by the need for connection and redemption. They're on their 4th season, 40 episodes in, and you know how we do here on the Spun Today podcast, we have to shout out the writers. Starting with the writer and creator Lena Waithe. Then moving on to Justin Hillian, Ricardo Gamboa, Marcus Gardley, Gasolina Kathy Kiskay, Nambi Kelly, Christina Ray Colon, James Rogers III, Dime Davis. I don't know why, but I just said that name in my head in like a Dominican way, like a hicked out Dominican way. Dime Davy, Dime Davis. All right. Cinque Henderson, Jewel Coronel, Ayanna Floyd, Adam Glass, Elwood Reed, J. David Shanks, Joseph C. Wilson, T.J. Brady, Rashid Newson, Rashida Brady, Mike Flynn, Sylvia L. Jones, Terry Kopp, Jade Branian, Lolis Eric Ellie, Patrick Ian Polk, and Deontay Stats. Shout out to all the writers. And by the way, that's not a slight to the directors, producers, actors, etc., 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 but the Spun Today podcast is anchored in writing. If I don't shout them out, who will? All right, now going on to season 4. Here's my little recap and review. So I really liked the beginning like montage showing like where the season was headed, because you kind of sort of keep it in the back of your mind, but kind of forget about it. Then you remember it, and it's like just like fragments of where the season is going to end up. So it's not giving too much away, but it does give enough away to like hook you in and want to see like, what the fuck? How the hell did this get there? So I really like that. I thought that was a pretty cool touch. And again, worked as that hooking mechanism right at the end. You know how they say like hook the reader? That definitely worked. Now, there were certain things that I didn't kind of like, which was like one of the most notable things was I felt, and as I'm saying this, I'm kind of like second guessing myself because I'm rethinking the like official synopsis of the show of how like all these characters become like coincidentally intertwined. But I feel like it was like a bit on the nose this season with certain characters and laying it on thick with the messiness. Like how Dom's character, played by Lala, fucked around with Emmett, but is now Emmett's character, by the way, played by Jacob Lattimore, one of the dopest characters in the series, in my opinion. But now she's dating Darnell, played by Rolando Boyce, which is Emmett's father. And that was kind of like, come on, would that happen? I don't know. That just seemed like a little, it seemed messy for messy's sake, if you will. That's just my opinion. So it was like certain things like that. Police brutality was like a central theme of this season, along with like the concept of like defund the police and the politics behind that movement. And I thought they did a really good job with just like the initial police brutality scene where a couple cops wind up beating up Jake's character, played by Michael Epps, as well as Kevin's character, played by Alex Hibbert. And they did a good job of showing like the community rallying behind each other during this time, and a great job of showing Kevin's like PTSD after the fact and how he began like self-medicating and, you know, just drinking liquor and smoking weed and trying to like numb his feelings towards like this super impactful event that happened to him and his friend. And it was really poignant how when he got home after the incident, and his family asked him, like, what happened? All he had to say was the word police. And everybody instantly in the room, like, knew exactly what he meant. So I felt that, like, really set the stage for, like, at least, like, that arc of the story. Now, Otis Perry's character, played by Curtis Cook, continues to be, like, really strong character in the series. And he's now the mayor. I thought there was something really cathartic about writing that, like, mayor firing a racist cop scene. And doing so like swiftly and immediately. Like there was something like really cathartic about that, because in so many egregious stories that we hear about police brutality incidents, and I mean like actual police brutality incidents, because you guys know where I stand on the whole, or my thought process behind the whole policing in this country, which is essentially, I don't believe in defund the police just for like defunding's sake, like get rid of all cops, because, you know, what are you going to do when somebody breaks into your crib? And when you actually need the good cops that are out there, which is the majority of them. But I do believe in raising the bar of law enforcement, not making it so that the barrier for entry is such that the bully from your old fucking high school goes to community college and becomes a cop. I actually believe in increasing the funding for police, but together with, again, raising the bar in terms of standards and earmarking funds specifically for training, for different types of training, and also allotting that funding for other services, preventative services that would go hand in hand and aid the police officers, so they're not expected to be doing the job of a social worker, a psychologist, a cop, et cetera, et cetera. And making it a mandatory continuing education training like every quarter. You know what I mean? Not just, you go to the gun range and you shoot once a year and you're good for the next year and you never touch the gun like since. And also martial arts training, specifically jiu-jitsu. And incentivize law enforcement to do so in that the funding is earmarked again for the training and it pays for this martial arts training, and the cops have the incentive to go and to a specific accredited school, so there's no like fuckery involved where somebody like, oh, I know a sensei and he, will say that I'm a black belt. But actual accredited schools where they're increasing rank from a white belt, 2-3 stripes to blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt, etc. As they progress, their salaries progress as well. You make blue belt, you get a $5,000 a year bump in salary. Oh, you made purple belt, oh, you get a $10,000 or another $5,000 bump in salary. You know what I mean? Like incentives in that way. And that's just like on the physical requirement side for their own safety, for the safety of their partners. Somebody with a blue belt in jiu-jitsu could, regardless of like size and weight, if it's not like extreme, like a 90-pound woman and a 300-pound guy, but regardless of size and weight, using the leverage and the knowledge of like a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, you can physically handle the vast majority of individuals and have like also that similar version, like that structure within other areas. Doesn't just have to be the physical, right? And the goal is to have like an elite law enforcement that in and of itself weeds out these like bad apples and these bad actors, which probably wouldn't be the most, disciplined, devoted, compassionate, caring folks that would go through this rigorous type of training to serve and protect. Anyway, I digress. But in so many of the situations where we have seen, egregious police brutality, there's so much bureaucracy and bullshit that goes on that you're like, oh, this another motherfucker got off, behind this like blue wall of silence. And I forget the name of the law, but it's escaping me right now, where the defense is literally, if a cop is in fear for their life, any killing is justified, but proving that you're in fear of your life has no standard to it. We've seen like so many cases go left because of like bullshit like that this scene of Mayor Otis Perry just like instantly finding the racist cop like immediately, like same day type shit, was like cathartic. That was pretty cool to see. Unrealistic, but dope to see. Speaking of which, on the flip side, because it definitely goes both ways, rest in peace to the 2 police officers shot here in New York and killed up in Harlem, 2 Dominican police officers, Wilbert Mora and Jason Rivera. They were just 27 and 22 years old respectively, and as I understand the story, they were responding to a domestic violence call where a mother and a brother called the cops on their other brother that was there visiting from Maryland. And that brother was there because the mother had just gone through some like medical procedure. But apparently there was a dispute. They called the cops, and the brother from Maryland, aka the piece of shit from Maryland, named LaShawn McNeil, was in a bedroom with the door closed. And when Jason Rivera and Wilbert Mora approached the door to see what was going on, do their jobs, another officer whose name I don't know stayed with the mother and the other brother like in the living room or something. And LaShawn McNeil just began shooting through the door with like armor-piercing bullets, which are illegal, and killed Jason Rivera, I believe, instantly. And Wilbert Mora died a few days later at the hospital. Then when he tried to leave, the other officer that was there shot LaShawn McNeil, who I think later died in the hospital. Such a sad fucking story, man. And here in New York, it's like every other day you hear, somebody got shot in the Bronx, somebody in Brooklyn. Today, I think in King's, what's that mall called in Brooklyn? King's Plaza. Two kids were shot in the mall It's like gun violence is like going crazy. It feels like it's exacerbated. It's like dumb gang, kid shit, seemingly for the most part. And hopefully our new mayor, Eric Adams, who was a former cop and seems to have a more, tough on crime type of demeanor to him, and like the respect and the backing of the NYPD, at least thus far. Hopefully they can quell what's been going on. Because again, for the most part, cops are fucking heroes that are doing their jobs. And I feel that like a laid back, don't let cops do their job type of approach that we've seen in like previous administrations, and that is just like part of like the whole defund the police type of like sentiment. That's definitely not the way, especially when shit is as wild as it is now. But again, it's a balancing act, because to quote fucking Spider-Man, I think it was, or was it Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So if you give that power to police officers and you have the bar so low for who can become a police officer, you're going to have these piece of shit police officers with that power that are definitely going to abuse it, which is why it's like a two-pronged approach. You raise the bar with the funding, with the training, etc., like I spoke about earlier, but also let them do their jobs. It's a delicate balance there, but definitely my heart goes out to their family and friends. Rest in peace, Jason Rivera, Wilbert Mora. Thoughts, prayers, and blessings definitely your way. I digress. And the season definitely had like a lot of John Lewis, quote unquote, good trouble type of theme throughout it. Papa has a podcast, Papa's Pulpit, which is dope. Shout out to podcasts out there. Definitely like seeing that. Jason Weaver makes an appearance in this season, which is really, really cool. Fun fact about Jason Weaver, by the way, he played the voice of Simba. I think teenage Simba, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it the kid Simba in Disney's The Lion King? Or he just played like he played the singing voice of the young Simba. And for that role, I remember his mom was like his manager at the time, and they offered him, I think, like a $2 million deal up front, and that's it. Or like a few $100,000, like $400,000 or $500,000, and then like back end points, royalties. And his mom said, "Wait, this is a Disney movie. Disney every fucking 10 years, 5 years, they re-release like all their shit, and it's the 25th anniversary of Snow White. You're by the Platinum Edition, blah blah blah." So she was savvy that way, and she was like, "Let me take the points. Let's take the back end." Even though $2 million is a lot of money, and I think the upfront, was actually a lot less than $500,000. I don't remember exactly, but it was a lot less than $2 million. But she went that route, and he's made, like, by his own admission, like multiple times that $2 million upfront money just from like the royalties of The Lion King. So I say that to say, don't get gassed with the upfront money, folks. Always take the back end deal. But anyway, super cool to see Jason Weaver in this, and his character was great. There was, you know what I jotted down? I jotted down a line from one of Maisha's raps. Maisha's a character played by Genesis Denise Hale. And I believe this was, I don't know if it was her actual rap, but it's the first time I ever heard it. Or if it was like something they wrote for the show, but it was a dope line saying that she was trying to win my life by a landslide. I like that. Okisha's character, by the way, played by Burgundy Baker, wound up keeping the baby. Remember, she got abducted in the previous season. She got kidnapped and like raped and like beat repeatedly. And Ronnie wound up like finding the basement that she was in and like freeing her and like killing the guy. And then Ronnie wound up getting shot at the end of that season. But it turns out she was pregnant, and she was, going to have an abortion. Then she was going to, debating rather having an abortion. Then she was going to have the baby and put the baby up for adoption, to the point that, she was interviewing potential parents, and actually past that, to the point that, the mother that she picked to give the baby to, she wound up having the baby. She was there and everything. She had like one of those like natural births, gave the baby up. And I guess there's like a grace period when you do something like that. And you have a certain amount of time to like say, you know what, I changed my mind. I want the baby back. And that's what she did. She wound up keeping the baby, which is pretty interesting in the sense of how that's going to play out. Like the mother, which is Nina, played by Tyler Abercrombie. She's trying to support her daughter, but she's like, yo, what are you going to do when the baby gets older and starts looking like his father, which is, again, the guy that fucking kidnapped and raped her. But she winds up keeping the baby. Something else notable for me within this season is that Jake winds up taking Kevin's girl, which is Gemma's character, played by Judea. Which I don't want to say Jake wound up taking his girl, because she kind of like gave herself to Jake. But this was the type of like quote unquote messiness like I was speaking about earlier, but that makes more sense, at least to me, from, just like younger high school-ish, type of relationships and like triangles, and, friends wound up dating like the same girl, and you hang out in the same like group of friends, and, there's overlap, like shit like that definitely happens around that age. So that kind of sort of like made sense to me. Then there was, this was kind of like came out of like left field. This was one of the things that I did not like, which was the mayor, Otis Perry, which again is like this gangster guy. He's like the boss of the underworld, and winds up, trying to portray like a clean image as a businessman, then winds up running for mayor and actually wins. But, he's still very much so involved in the underworld of like drugs and gangs and whorehouses, etc. But anyway, he winds up getting shot by Coogie and Brandon's mom, played, by the way, by Kima, Detective Greggs from The Wire. And her character in The Shy is Laverne, played by, again, her real name, Sonja Son. But that was just like some like from left field. I don't know. It just seemed like they wanted to get from point A to point C in the story, and they knew that Duda had to wind up like shot or something to like make the season play out how it did. And they couldn't think of anything to like make that happen or connect it. So they just brought in Coogie and Brandon's mom, which shot him for them. Mainly for Brandon, because then there's a reveal that Duda had Brandon killed, basically. And Brandon, as you guys know, I covered this on a previous season of The Shy, was written off for the show because there were some sexual harassment allegations. He was like a main character. And I was really interested in how they were going to progress in season 3 after like that happened. And they kind of like opened it up with like a funeral of his, but they didn't explain like how he died or who he killed him, but they revealed that here. But anyway, I just thought that was, I don't know. It was just like one of those scenes that kind of left me like, come on. Around episode 5 or 6, I believe it is, we find out that Jada, Emmett's mom, has cancer. Jada, played by Yolanda Ross. And she played this role so impressively. And by this role, I mean just like someone, being sick and with cancer, nonetheless, and just like wrestling with life and the real possibility of having to let go of it and of all those that you love. And it was so emotional and touching. I fucking cried, especially when like Emmett finds out that his mom has cancer. It was so fucking sad. And she has a masterful fucking performance. Like, I'd be surprised if she didn't like win awards off the shit. Like, I don't know like how those like awards and like Emmys and stuff like work exactly, but I'd be surprised if she didn't win something, because she was just like knocked it out the park. Then this next thing is, again, going back to the whole like relationship messiness thing. This one is one that didn't make sense again. So we had one that didn't make sense, then one that made sense, then this is one that doesn't make sense. Damn, see, now I'm second guessing myself. It kind of does make sense. Like, if you're like in a jealous rage type of situation, kind of does make sense, I guess. But anyway, Kevin's mom, again, Nina, she is married to Dre, played by Miriam Hyman. And Dre is cool with, and they're all cool with Jada, who has cancer. So Jada confides in Dre to let her know that she has cancer and to help her go to the doctor and to her like chemo treatments and stuff like that, while she figures out how to tell and break the news to Emmett and to the rest of her family and loved ones. So Dre is like sneaking around and telling her wife Nina that, she's just like working late, etc. But Nina gets like skeptical, and she sees on her phone, one day she takes her phone, Dre's phone, and she's like a message from Jada saying, something to the effect of, "Thanks for being there for me last night," or like something like that. There's like this like Three's Company-ish type of like misunderstanding, where now she just believes that they're having an affair. She follows her one day and she sees her with Jada like on the stoop, and she's like, Jada's crying because of the whole cancer thing. Dre like hugs her to console her as a friend. But Nina, watching this, gets like jealous. She goes to the bar, starts drinking, and she winds up hooking up with a chick and like sleeping with her. The chick, by the way, that I just glossed over was the Brat, which was dope to see. Really cool to see the Brat. But yeah, she just does this like one night stand with the Brad, and then there's a reveal of Jada having cancer, and that's really what Dre was doing and helping her. She wasn't like cheating with Jada or anything like that. And then Nina has to like wrestle with, do I tell her? Do I not tell her? And ultimately she does, and they, choose to like rebuild, and they kind of leave it off like on a little bit of a cliffhanger. They choose to try to make it work, but you can kind of see it going both ways. But yeah, I guess that is a believable kind of messiness. So I take that back. Then there's the last thing I jotted down here that resonated with me was around episode 9, the adoptee mom, the mom that was supposed to adopt Keisha's baby. Keisha's telling her how, people recognize her like from the news because it was all over the news. This girl that got kidnapped and raped and all this stuff, and that every once in a while she bumps into someone that's like, oh my God, you're her, you're the girl. And she usually gets like traumatized and like triggered from shit like that. Rightfully so. It makes her like relive that situation. But there was one situation where a lady kind of not confronted her, but told her, oh my God, it's you. And the guy that she started seeing, which seems like a cool guy, by the way, like a little too like cool, like I'm waiting for him to like fuck up somehow. But he seems like cool and nice and like the type of dude she should be with. But he like checks the realtor lady, and she's like, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up. It was Emmett that checks the realtor lady, because she goes with Emmett to go see a house that Emmett wants to buy for his mom. But yeah, the realtor lady then just says, no, I apologize, I don't mean it in that way. And of course, you wouldn't want to like speak about that stuff. I just want you to know that you give hope to other survivors, and just wanted to thank you. And then Keisha was like kind of like taken aback by it. And she's speaking with the adoptee mom of how, not knowing like how to feel about that. The fact that she is kind of giving like other survivors hope, just like her story, and she doesn't know like how to really like deal with that. And now does she have to like live up to that, etc. And the adoptee mom says something that I thought was pretty dope, which was, just because someone puts you on a pedestal doesn't mean that you have to live there. And with that, I'd say that you don't necessarily have to put The Chi on a pedestal, as I do, but you definitely should check it out. The Chi, season 4, streaming now on Showtime. Check it out.